Hey everyone, happy Thursday and welcome to Hustle to Hero with Wings of Growth. I am here with my new best friend, Tariq Green. And Tariq, why don't you say hello and give a little bit of an introduction and tell our audience all about you?
No question. Hi, everyone. Tariq Green here from the Reentry Institute of America, which is the name of my agency, and I'll talk a little bit about what we do. But I'm definitely glad to be here with Kiley. Kiley is right. We're new best friends, and we have a lot of plans. We have a lot of um, work that we're planning to do together to continue on our mission of helping others, helping ourselves, and helping others as well. So glad to be here, and I look forward to all that might come out of this.
I think this is a funny story because I like to tell people how we met. We met on LinkedIn. I actually stalked Tariq, and I loved what he was doing with the Reinstitute. That I mean, it just is an amazing story, and he's going to tell you a little bit about it. But I just couldn't wait to get on the phone with him, and we had a Zoom, and I tell you what, the first time we Zoomed, like we had plans moving in motion. I'm talking like it was the stars and the moons and
That's
firecrackers
right.
and all this kind of stuff. We're like, okay, yes, let's do this program. Bam. And
That's right.
Tariq did not know. He put it like I had fire coming out, man. I'm like, yes, sir, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? The nature of this work is like that, though, really. The nature of this work is you don't get into this work to make a lot of money. You get into this work because you're passionate about what it is you're doing. And so, yeah, we once we spoke and connected, the rest is history, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tariq, tell the audience a little bit about your story because your story is just an incredible journey, and I think that that's really powerful.
Yeah. So yeah, originally I'm from Brooklyn, New York. The old school Brooklyn, not the new Brooklyn. For those who, if you know, right? For those who are from Brooklyn, know that the old school Brooklyn, they used to refer to it as Gunsmoke. Years ago because it was a rough place, real rough place to grow up at. But I had my challenges there as a youngster coming up in those neighborhoods. We had our challenges, and of course I got I was always a good student. Let me say that, right? So coming through the ranks of school, I was always hundreds on my test. I didn't even have to read or study a lot of times. I would take a test and still get 100 on it. So I was always a good student and a good learner. Going after puberty, of course, and coming into my big boy status out in those streets. It was the same thing, right? Once I got out, I started learning things really quickly. But the interesting thing, and I always like to say this when I'm speaking with people, is that one thing that when I look back on it, what I realize is that I really did have to dumb myself down to some degree to fit into the streets where I was aspiring to go to, right? So in order to really get along, I had to, in order to be understood by people, I had to really uh, turn it down a notch, which is a horrible thing. It's a reality, but it's a horrible thing at the same time. That led my road into the jails of New York, Rikers Island, and then from Rikers Island, of course, to the prisons upstate New York. And I'm skipping over a whole lot for sake of time, but
Yeah.
there's a process, that it goes through. From the time of being arrested, you find yourself first in the precincts, which is central booking, where they file whatever paperwork they're going to file on you. That finds its way to a courtroom where a judge then brings you in, for an arraignment, and then if you are remanded, as opposed to getting bail or being released, then you go to Rikers Island or you go to the county jail, whichever they send you to. And then from there, of course, there's a process of back and forth to court. You go to trial, and if convicted, then you either get local time or you get prison time, which will lead you to New York State prisons. And I traveled that road, but always always being aware of the injustices. I mean, listen, there were times when I actually may have been guilty of an offense that I was arrested for, some petty crime as a kid. But going through the system, you still are faced with so many injustices that don't escape you. You know, so it's not about, you know, it doesn't matter. You guilty, you committed a crime. So whatever happens, that's just it. You deserve it. It's not the truth. It's not the truth.
Absolutely.
Justice should be something that's carried out every step of the way, always. And it should never be. It should never be what we have in the criminal justice system here. I know many people don't even call it criminal justice system anymore. They call it the criminal legal system because there's so many cases of injustice as opposed to justice. So, but that was the early years for me. It did come a time when I started realizing that I have to change my ways, and that's something that is not really easy to come by for so many people. Some people, don't realize that they have to change their own ways, and in spite of the fact that there's so much wrong around us, right, that we will eventually get to, hopefully we'll get to trying to tackle those things. It starts right within yourself, right at home, right? And so, there's changes that have to be made there too. Kiley, I could go all day with this.
That's okay. So now I want to ask you, okay, you were incarcerated for how many years total?
21 years total. And that's on what I call the installment plan, right? Because it was a few years in, then come home for a few years, and a few years back in, then come home, then, then a few years back in again. My last conviction was in 2002. And I went to trial. The charge was criminal possession of a forged instrument, which is a nonviolent crime. Mm-hmm. And that was in 2002. I was arrested for criminal possession of a forged instrument, is what it was called. And I wanted to represent myself. By that time, in and out the system, as I said earlier, a very good student. I had learned a little bit about the law. And I was so interested in the law, right? Because when I first began reading legal books, my interest was sparked because it was there that I learned so much about history, right? And so many things would probably blow a lot of people's mind about the law as it relates to history in America, Black history in particular in America. There were so many things that in the books that are still there. One thing about laws too, I want to explain to everyone, one thing about laws is that they are all still in the law books. Anything that ever happened in the law and was written in law is still available for you to read in the law. And that's why you can go back to the beginning of time, right? To the beginning of, not time, but the beginning of time here in America, under this legal system, and read anything that ever happened. And so that's what really grabbed me initially. And then I started reading and seeing how things were happening in the courtroom that I just read last night was unconstitutional, but it was being done. And it just brought me to a realization that so many people who don't read law or know about the law suffer so many constitutional violations, and they never even know about it. And one of the reasons they never know, of course, the first reason is because they don't learn about law. Right. The second reason is because the court-appointed lawyer standing next to them is really not interested in getting into those type of weeds. It's a lot of work, and I get it. And the legal aid is thinking, I don't get paid enough for this. And you're guilty. You did it. So it doesn't matter that they're violating your constitutional rights. Now, the legal aid might be saying this, not knowing that you're actually guilty, just believing that you're guilty, right? You wouldn't be arrested if you wasn't guilty. That kind of thing. So
then, Tariq, all right, now, you're maturing, right? You are getting a passion into maybe setting what's right, maybe talking about like, hey, this is wrong and this is right. Just because, people are in prison, just because you're incarcerated, maybe you're guilty, but you still have rights. So what I want to find out is, when you got out, I love that story of what you did when you got out. When you got out that last time, 2002, you had a mission in your mind. And so what did you do?
Oh yeah. So first, I went in 2002, and so I ended up representing myself, and I was sentenced to life in prison because, of course, I didn't win that trial. I was sentenced to life in prison, and I went upstate and continued to study. I became a paralegal through the mail. I took a paralegal course and went upstate, and then I petitioned the court to allow me to appeal my case, which I was granted that. I appealed my case. It took a total of 7 years, but at the end of it, I was granted my appeal, and that's how I was released in 2009. And so but seeing all of the injustices during my time in the local county jail in Rockland County where I was at, seeing all of those injustices just made me know when I got home I had to work within the field of helping some of those men and women who had no idea that their constitutional rights were being violated, to try to help them realize those things. But I was barred from working in the law library for whatever reasons the county gave at that time. I don't know, but I started working in the local one-stop career resource center in Rockland County, and people were coming through there, and I was helping them to navigate the system, coming home, reentry.
Now, was that the volunteer position?
No.
That was the paid position. Okay. I'm not going to ruin the story. Not going to ruin the story.
Yeah, no, that was a bit. I did do some volunteer work prior to getting that job. In fact, it was the volunteer work that helped me get that job. Yes. But that was one of the things that at that time, we're talking, 16 years ago at this point. And so it wasn't a lot of the push and support for reentry services then that we have today.
I can imagine.
Right? It was a whole different world, to be honest with you. And so one of the things at that time was, for men and women coming out of prisons, you might have to volunteer and work for free at first, and then let them see how hard you work, and maybe you'll get hired, even if it's at an entry level position, which in and of itself is extremely unjust. It's just not fair, right? Who can actually survive like that? And men and women that come home from prison are no different than men and women who have been home from prison in terms of what you need to survive out here, right? And so, but to make a long story short, I got the job at the One Stop, and I was working with the population, men and women returning from prison, from jails or prisons, and I did that for about 6 years. And the agency I worked for actually lost their contract. But what was in my mind for a couple of years prior to them losing that contract is that I don't need this red tape. I don't need this red tape to be able to help people. In fact, I had a relationship with so many different agencies from helping the population over the years that I had been working there. I just knew that I could do this. I can do it without the red tape, without being restricted. And so I met someone who had a 501c3 agency that had a program going already, but they didn't have any resources. Right? They didn't know, what agencies might be willing to help or not help. And so we got together and we began the work of helping, the reentry population. And from there, the rest was really history. It's so easy. Anytime there's a need for a service that's not being provided and you get into that, the rest is really easy because, people will come to you because it's such a needed service, right? And that's how reentry was, at that time.
Now, and then if I remember right, you had a little bit of a setback because of a partnership.
Right.
Which of course we won't talk too much about, but I want to know, and this is the thing to Hustle's the Hero. You're like the poster boy to Hustle the Hero. Really, honestly, you came out, you were doing great things, and then you had a setback. All right. But what did you do? You didn't sit there and cry in your cereal. No, you peeled your big boy panties up, or big boy drawers up, if you will. And what did you do? You started your institute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was there all the time. But I do want to say, I really want so many other men and women who are in the same situation, right? Who have served time, came home, but they feel like they can do something, whatever their passion is, whatever is in their heart to do. But there's so many reasons in their own mind why they can't do it. I need startup money, I need people, I need whatever those reasons in your head that hold you back from doing it. You have to dismiss those reasons. You have to really move forward with what inside you can do. So yeah, one of the things about this field, period, and this is something I want so many people to hear and to grab a hold to. In this field, there's a lot of people in the field who were just like myself, right? Coming home from prison, knowing that we can do more good than not, being connected to agencies, it restricts us to a large degree. And knowing that we could do so much more if we didn't have those restrictions, we go forward, we create agencies, or we become part of big agencies, and we see it. We see huge agencies, $1 million agencies, we take to a whole nother level because of the way we work, which is a good thing. But it is so easy to get caught in the politics of agencies, of things. And so that is something that is really difficult to navigate through if you're not prepared for it, right? And so that's something that I really want to stress hard, is not to get caught in those politics of thinking that or creating a system very much like the one that we had to fight against. And what do I mean by that, Kiley? So among the reentry population, there are so many elitists. There are those of us who excel in reentry. And one of the reasons is because we know so well what is needed, what it takes to be successful once you leave out of prison, and to how to navigate a lot of these services here on the outside. And what happens is that naturally the cream rises to the top. And so there becomes a small segment of the population who really excel. They rub elbows with mayors and with governors and with senators and with congresspeople, which is not a bad thing at all. What does happen is that what is created in that process is almost like an elite group. And that elite group becomes the gatekeepers now. So here we have, a guy who just comes out of prison, has only been home 2 or 3 years, but is dynamic and powerful and can make so many things happen, but can't really get a foot in because everything is going to that elite group, right? All donors, the big philanthropists, the big companies are looking at that elite group because their name is everywhere. And then, so not to get caught up in that kind of dynamic where where resources stop at a certain point, and I think that's a real challenge, and it's a real problem, and it's one that we have to address.
Right. So now, how long have you had the Reentry Institute of America? How long have you been open?
So that's been 3 years, and it's been a really good 3 years in the sense that as much as we think we know at times, I've been in the field for years, right? I was in the field 13 years prior to to starting the Reentry Institute, and so 13 years worth of work. I had gained so much experience and so much knowledge over those years. But the last 3 years have shown me that it is so much more that that has to be learned, and so it humbles you, and I think that process of being humbled really allows you to get more and more, get what you need.
Absolutely. So now your Reinstitute, the Reinstitute of America is outside the New York area. We know that, and it's a physical location, you guys. Tariq, you're able to house how many of the reentry, and I think it's just mostly men, which makes sense under one roof. So How many is your total that you can house?
So I can house 22 people in this house.
Okay.
Which is good. And I just got a guy 15 minutes, 20 minutes ago, just came here from 20 years. He just was released. He was just released yesterday from Fishkill Correctional Facility in New York. Served 20 years, and he just came today and was just like, wow. He was blown away. He was so happy to be here, and I was so happy to receive him. So
yeah, that's awesome. I can tell the smile makes all the difference, Tariq. It really does. I love it. So one of the things that again we talked about was and I said, listen, I'll jump on. I'm a train ride away, but I'll come up to see you. Let's see what we can do. And Tariq and I've got some really great plans. After this, after we're done with the podcast, we'll be able to share some things with you. We're going to be sharing a flyer for our event that we're going to be doing. But Tariq, you and I got together because, I talk reentry, but I talk to veterans and first responders. I talk about how you can start a business and stay out of that minimum wage hellhole, right? And if that's too harsh, we can say minimum wage nightmare. Because when they come out, they have zero chance of getting a job. And it's like, that's just not fair, right? People have the gumption, they have that fortitude, they have that drive. And they need to know, no matter what their circumstances are, you can become financially independent. And that's where you and I really started thinking, wait a second here. Let's start a program within the Institute.
Right.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to come to talk to your
residence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're excited to have you. I told them about you. I told them what we're going to be doing, and they're excited to have you. But that is one of the things that I've been waiting years to implement. I just needed the right people. I needed, one of the big things one of the big obstacles is funding. Yep. Funding is such a huge obstacle because I want to get the right people in to do the training, but those things, they cost money.
Yep.
So linking with you was an excellent thing for me and for the residents in the house, because what I ultimately want to do is give people the training that they need to become self-sufficient, so they don't have to rely on the system as they're doing now. But what that also does is that puts each individual in a position to help that many more coming behind them. And so
it's a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I'm busy writing grants and doing some other things, trying to get this done. And it is funding, you guys. We can't help other people without funding. But Tariq, I could tell you, it's phenomenal when you start doing the research. We work in cohorts. Okay. So Tariq's Reinstitute, his house, his group will be a cohort. And so let's say it's 10 people. Let's say it's 5 to 10 people, something like that. You guys, your donations helps the many, not the one. You have an entire group of in his case, reentry gentlemen that are going to learn how to start their own business. And that's the most amazing thing. But it all starts with confidence. It starts with, we don't just throw them out there and say, hey, great, let's do it. No, it starts with confidence. It starts with a mindset. So therefore, their confidence level is going to skyrocket. What is that going to do to their persons? But also, every single person has an immediate family. And then you have a more of a distant family. But guess what? It goes even more than that, because when they start their businesses, other businesses and other community people get to benefit, because now they can go tithe at church. They can go to bring their children to the movies. They can go and eat at the restaurants. They can go employ a house cleaner. So those are the things that we're doing. It's a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fact. Like I was explaining to one of my residents here just yesterday. I was explaining that, it would be such a beautiful idea for us to start a woodwork
Mhm.
training, training course right here at the house, because we get donations a lot of times of some very good furniture, wood furniture.
Nice.
And but sometimes it's not always pristine, right? There may be some scrapes or some, so just learning how to sandpaper and then shellac or repaint, remodel, and then we can sell stuff if we could, right?
Right.
We could put it
Right.
out. Some stuff we redonate, some stuff we'll sell, but that would be a way to generate for themselves some income, things that they can use around the house, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Terry, that's a great idea, and we're going to circle back on that because I want to tell you, I was on a reentry community call yesterday, and one of the guys has a rural area here in Virginia, and what they do close to the rural area, they also have like a furniture store or a store where they resell things, and
Hmm.
that is something that you and I talked about, like taking
Right.
some of the space and having it so that you've got a vocational training, whether it be woodworking, whether it be, all right, artisans and painting. There's so much that you can do. Everybody's got a special talent. And
That's
believe me, I joke, but the reentry community, they are clever and they are entrepreneurial for sure.
Yeah, because you know why? You know why they are? Because they're people.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're people. They're not a special, they're not a different, they're human like everybody else. They're
Yeah.
you and I. It's not a, I always listen to people the way when we talk about the reentry population, it's always a they and them kind of, it's a widely
Mhm.
accepted thing. I'm sure I probably have used it, unknowingly,
Mhm.
you know. But the reality is that many people who have served time in prison, before they went to prison, were teachers,
Yep.
were priests, were police officers, you know, president.
Right. Right.
I couldn't,
Everybody makes mistakes, man. Everybody makes mistakes.
except in the president's, except in the president. No, I shouldn't. But what I'm saying is that there are different, there are different professions
Yep.
that were incarcerated before they, there were people who were professional before they were incarcerated. So when they came home, it's not like they need to be taught how to have a job or need to be
Right.
taught how to have a skill. They had them before they went, and then many people learned
Right.
inside.
Yes.
Right? I became a paralegal inside.
Right.
So
Yeah. I love it. All right, you guys. So what we're going to do is we'll have the show notes all collected. We're going to be sharing it also on Tariq's LinkedIn page. And then what we'll do is we'll be attaching the program that we are putting out there. And remember, we cannot do this without you. Your donations help the many, not the one.
that
So
is cool.
I'm going to say bye for now. Tariq, you're definitely going to be on again. And I can't wait because we're going to be updating people on the journey that we have and on this amazing, amazing cause that we've got going on.
Beautiful. I appreciate being here. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who came out.
You got it. All right. Bye for now. And remember, if you'd like to be a guest on Hustle to Hero, whether you're in the reentry space, community, veterans, and first responders, we want to hear from you. Thanks and bye for now.